I'm the Joseph and Seal Mazer Librarian for Judaic Studies at the Yale University Library. And I'd like to discuss today some of the unusual and rare materials that we have in Judaica in the library that are not that well known to the outside public, but are really quite interesting. And I'd like to bring it to the attention of a larger audience so that they can appreciate the treasures that we have in Judaica at the Yale Library. And so I'm going to dedicate today's discussion to a special genre of materials that we have in the collection called Pinkas Craiova, or in English we would call them community records, bylaws, history of Jewish communities in, primarily at Yale we have them from Europe, and mostly from Central Europe or Eastern Europe. And these are, in a way, the living documentation of communities that have been mostly, if not all, destroyed during World War II, during this horrible period when Nazi Germany basically devastated all the Jewish communities in that part of the world. So I'm going to discuss today Pinkas, which is the singular, or a register of a community in Romania called Craiova. It's not a major community, and most people probably have never heard of it. And that's what I find interesting about our collection in general, is that we don't necessarily have only documents from the major and great centers of Jewish life in Europe, but also of small towns that maybe nobody's heard of, except for the people who came there from there, but where Jewish life flourished at one time and Jewish culture did, and they produced some beautiful things that nobody would know about. And who knows how much of this kind of material was destroyed during World War II, but some were saved, thank goodness. I have here to just show you about information about towns like this, like Craiova. I have this book here, which is called Where Once We Walked, a guide to the Jewish communities destroyed in the Holocaust. This book, in alphabetical order, gives the names of towns that nobody probably knows about anymore. Hundreds, maybe thousands of towns that you could see I'm in the ends now, which we find useful to verify names of towns and also to check against the spellings of how we would enter it into our catalog. And the evocative name of Where Once We Walked in itself is so sad, and with the implication, of course, we walked there once, but never again. So this Pinkas on Craiova, I want to just show you some of the work and content that went into it. This particular register, with this amazing title page, is a register of the burial society, the Chevra Kadisha of the Jewish community of Craiova in Romania. And it still is in Romania, even though so many towns after World War II were either given to Ukraine or given to Hungary, or the borders changed a lot. But Craiova still is in Romania. And it contains the bylaws and decisions signed by leaders and members of the society, as well as accounts of various events that took place in this community. such as a dispute between a group of more modern people who wanted to transport the deceased to the cemetery in a new wagon, while members of the Chevra Kadisha that were more traditionally inclined felt that the body of the deceased person should be carried to the cemetery by people on a stretcher and on foot. So it's modernity, which is in this case a wagon, mind you, as opposed to people who hold on to tradition and say this is how we've always buried our dead and we don't want to make changes now. Now, a lot of time and effort went into this. There's a really quite artistic title page, and it says here, the Register of the Chevra Kadisha, the Burial Society of Craiova, and it gives the date, which is 1846 or 47. We don't know for sure. We have this very beautifully executed lion on top of what's a kind of portal. And it's a lion that seems to be at rest, not a rampant one, but a lion at rest, which is appropriate for a lion that's used for a society for the burial of the dead. But in addition to that, we have yet another magnificent title page, 2 title pages. And this gives some more of the information. It's the Society of the Burial Society of this town. The year here is 1846 or 47. And it tells us it's 5608, so it's maybe actually 1848. And it gives us also the name, I think, of the person who wrote this. It may not. And it expresses, among other things, a hope that soon the Messiah will come and all the dead will rise again. In addition, you can see here now they write their bylaws and rules and regulations and obligations to the society and to the job that they had ahead of them, which was to give every Jew who dies, man or woman, a proper Jewish burial with respect and hopefully when the time comes with a proper tombstone. These people, it was considered a great honor in Jewish communities all over the world to be member of a burial society. It was usually the elders and leaders of the community who were members, and it's considered to be an ultimate act of kindness and charity because there's no return on such an act, since the person who's dead can't return the favor. So this is an act that's really truly of pure charity, with no expectation that any personal gain would come to the person who is involved in this. And therefore a great honor, and only people who had any standing in the community could be members of it. And then I'd like to show you another page, and this, even though it deals, this is from the Burial Society, it is the cantor of this community wrote a very short history of the community of Craiova, and recounts the trials and tribulations that befell the Jewish community in this town. And it turns out that this community had suffered pogroms in its history, and in fact, there were many Jews at one time were expelled from the city, and there was great suffering. And the cantor, of all people, because usually it wasn't a cantor who who wrote down the history of a community, but in this case he did. And it's in a very beautiful calligraphy and also decorated. So this is a very important Pinkas, because we have the list of the names of the members, we have their discussion of theology, their expression of belief in God, and the importance of the work that they do in burying the dead. And we have names then of many members of the members of this burial society. We probably would have also the names of some of the people who passed away that they buried. And here we have, let's say, a list of the names, again in a very beautiful hand, calligraphic hand, the Shamashim, which I guess they were officers in the society. This looks to be a page that was pasted in and not original. So we know that Yiddish was also a language that was spoken by many of the Jews of Craiova, even though and here too we have, and this is in a cursive hand, we have information, it looks like also kinds of regulations in Yiddish. So it's written in Hebrew and in Yiddish, the Hebrew being the language that's most illustrious and used for most important things, the Yiddish for less important things like names, amount of money that was given. Here we have a list of people who died and the year in which they died. This is in Yiddish, and some of it in Hebrew. So there are different hands who were at work in producing this narrative as well as the information that's contained in this Pinkas. It's probably one of the few records that we have left of this community of Craiova, which was not one of the major communities in Europe, but one of the many, many small towns in which Jews resided up until World War II, where they continued Jewish life and culture and produced scholars and built synagogues and study houses and kept to the traditions of their ancestors and were wiped out forever in World War II. There may be some Jews living in Craiova today, but it's probably just a shadow of what it once was. And for all I know, and I'm not sure, I didn't check, there may be no Jews there at all anymore. So these things are irreplaceable, and these registers, and we're very proud to have them in our collection and make them available to scholars who wish to study the history of the Jews of Central and Eastern Europe. We have here primary source material for them to study and produce scholarship from. Thank you.